that's something which is very similar to that book, and I know I will like it as well. Then, as Part mentioned earlier, I'm a bookstagrammer. Bookstagram is basically a community on Instagram of book lovers who read a lot. And all of these people also share recommendations very actively on Instagram on the books they like. So if I follow a couple of people who I trust and whose reviews I trust, I know these books are something which I will like reading. Short stories, like when I don't feel like reading anything, but I don't have time, when I'm too busy, when exams coming up, or I have some work and I don't have time to read, I read short stories. If I get 15 minutes of time to read, I read a small short story. It's a wonderful way to get back to reading. Ebooks are something also which I use a lot because I'm a sales manager. So usually I'm out on the field the entire day and I can't carry books with me. But let's say I have like an hour for lunch. So I can just take out my mobile, take out my Kindle, open an ebook and start reading. I can read anywhere. And that really helps me to keep reading all the time. This, no matter how busy I am, I can take some time out and read. Then you can join a book club. I'm part of multiple book clubs. Book clubs usually have read-alongs. You have book buddies where you form that 3-4 people come together and you say that we are going to read this book together, and you discuss the book together and you decide, I'm going to read, let's 2 chapters today, or I'm going to read chapters 9 p.m. on track. Reading sprints are something which also often happens, which you can also organize with your friends, where you take out 2 hours on a weekend, say on a Sunday, usually on Sundays. You say from 3 to 5, I'm only going to read. And you get 5 friends and you say, okay, from 3 to 5, we're just going to read. But you'll read for 30 minutes. So 3 to 3:30, I'm going to read. 3:30, we're all going to come on the group chat and say, oh, how much did you read? How many pages? So on and so forth. And like this, 2 hours, I'm just reading. There are 5 of us. So we encourage each other. These kind of things are some tips which I think can help you out of a reading slump. Last point is reading is different for everyone. You don't have to always read only a physical paperback or a hardcover book. You can be somebody who likes reading graphic novels, or you can be somebody who likes reading ebooks. As I said, I read a lot of ebooks as well. You can be somebody who likes reading audiobooks. You're traveling to work, you're going on a train in Mumbai, you're on a train, you're going to college, you're listening to a book on your phone. That also is reading. That's not no less valid reading. Like when I go to the gym, I often listen to an audiobook. That's something I can do. So I'm also working out at the same time I am reading, right? And last point, how to read more. Goodreads reading challenge. So Goodreads has a reading challenge, a yearly reading challenge every year, where you decide how many books you want to read and they help you keep track. Tracking your reading is something which really helps, which has helped me. But there's only one rule to reading, and that is to have fun. You should like what you're reading and you should have fun with what you're reading. Okay, I think I'm done with my presentation and what I wanted to speak mainly. So I think after Yogesh has put his points forward, if you guys have some questions, we can have a discussion. Over to you, Parth. I think our host has left us. Yogesh, I think you should just start, maybe.
Yeah, I think Parth is returning right now. Yogesh, you're on mute. Yogesh, you're on mute.
Okay.
Neeti,
yeah, I did unmute, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
miss.
Nothing, carry on.
Okay. Yeah, Yogesh, you can start.
Okay. Parth hasn't been reading, I guess, so he just got afraid and left. Sorry. Anyway, that was brilliant, Archita. I mean, there are so many points I could talk about just with your screens. First of all, you've put so much effort into it. Like, I'm stupefied by that itself, because I was talking to Parth and he was like, okay, we have to talk about reading. I'm like, yeah, cool. Chal, 9 baje milte, we'll talk, and then I see this. So it's sort of incredible. Anyway, Parth, thank you for the introduction. It's very generous. You, okay, it's good. I don't know. But anyway, 2 or 3 things that you spoke of, Archita, which I'd like to point out. You've read 1,300 books. I mean, that's not even human, all right? Like, I don't know.
Up to
I am
which
I'm sort of slow with reading and stuff, but 1300 books I imagine for a lifetime. All right, okay, चल एक life में इतना cover कर ले. The other thing, a conversation starter, reading as a conversation starter, right? It is so obvious right now that we have sort of formed a club, a sort of a meeting, a group joint meeting, and that itself is a proof, that it can start conversations, not even conversations, entire sessions like these. And the other thing, Doctor Who fan, I remember the Van Gogh episode, man. Come on,
oh man,
it
I
it
love it.
it can make a grown man cry, sort of thing. So yeah, all these things. I have this habit of kind of taking it all in, so that I can keep track of all the things that I have imbibed, absorbed, whatever. Now, see, I am not going to talk about all these things to do lists and wo, because it's sort of tough for me to put reading into that corner. I tend to get romantic with these things. So I'll tell you a couple of things when it comes to reading. By the way, it came to me almost as a compulsion. So I wrote a poem, and I started writing poems, and so on and so forth. And then it turns out you can't be a writer without being a reader. I sort of learned that over a period of time. And so I started reading. You must read if you want to be a writer. And that's how it came to me. By the way, the beginnings of these things are always, sort of underwhelming. Let's say, ask a football fan, for example. Talk about blood, sweat, tears, passion, and yeah, we feel those things at different times. We get goosebumps. The Anfield thing, Aguero, the 19th title, so on. Okay, there is this one bit I forgot to add in the beginning. I have a tendency to wander because there are just so many thoughts running around, and I go to places and I just forget. I have to come back to something. So if I do that, stick with me. Hopefully, we'll come to the point. So just like a football fan, I don't know how one begins to watch football. It's obviously at the age of 8, you don't generate some kind of passion for things. I'm really passionate about Manchester United. Boy, you're 8 years old. What do you know about passion? So these things come to us from, I don't know, from peers, from the things we watch online or on TV or something. Reading ka bhi वैसे है. The beginning are always underwhelming, but when right now you say, yeah, I've read 1300 books so far, nobody's going to ask you how did you begin. you know Everybody's going to ask you how, like me, like myself, like I'm doing right now. Anyway, you spoke of what does reading do to you. Why do you read, and what do you like about it, what happens? So in my MA literature class, there was this guy, very good guy, Victor Shklovsky. Okay, and he spoke of defamiliarization. Pretty, it's a no brainer. There are familiar things, and you sort of defamiliarize it. Now he said, when you go to a park, let's say on a morning walk, which is a daily routine, all right, you come across a stone at the corner. Okay, in some corner, you take a turn, you come across a stone. On the first day, you sort of collide with it, and you're aware, okay, there's a stone here, I need to be careful, right? The next day, you avoid it. After a week, you're automatically avoiding the stone, you know. And after a few months, you don't even care if there's a stone or not. And after a year, you'll forget there is a stone. It just becomes invisible. Now he said, I'm sort of paraphrasing, familiarity with things can make things invisible, which might include a stone, a sofa, and maybe one's wife. Okay, his words, not mine. So when he said that, the point of his saying that was, we need some things to defamiliarize other things, so that things don't become dead, things don't become invisible. Okay, so that's where art and poetry and literature and all of that comes. All the arts, music, cinema, this and that. Now, um, let's say you've had a heartbreak, okay, and you're going to go to a friend and say, I'm depressed, my heart is broken. you know. And yeah, आगे का the festivities go on, अरे chill मार कुछ नहीं ये वो. But then what happens is that it does not have that kind of impact. Now, if I say my heart aches and a drowsy numbness pains my senses, though of hemlock I had drunk. Okay, now that's John Keats, right? Now, now when somebody says that, you're going to listen to the guy, and you will know, okay, what this is what heartaches feel like, you know, and a heartache, a simple heartache, a simple breakup that was at the verge of invisibility, at the verge of not giving a damn about, has just become so painful because of poetry, you know. And that's what you get when you read, right? So there is this defamiliarization thing that happens when it comes to reading. The other thing is, uh, there is a proper paper. I mean, since we're discussing reading in detail, and by the way, that presentation was really cool. It covered almost everything. So when we talk about that in an informational way, there is a proper paper called the reading process, and I think it's by Wolfgang Iser. I forgot, it was in my first year of masters. I think it's Wolfgang Iser. Now the reading process says that, okay, let's take a page and let's say something is written on it. Okay, now I don't know, you see something here, and if I tell you there is something written on my hand, okay, you can't read it. All right, you can't read it. That's why it almost doesn't exist for you, you know. You are not able to understand it. It's unintelligible, and so it doesn't exist, right? But if I get you this, if I, let's say, if I bring this closer to you, I don't know where the camera is, you might be able to read it. I don't know if this is working in a mirror reverse form or whatever, but this is To the Lighthouse by Virginia
We
Woolf.
can see it.
So so good. But okay, great. So when I take the book and keep it closer to you, you're able to read it, and with the reading you're able to look at the picture, and a sort of a, a spark just goes off in your head, and you start imagining things, right? Now let's take this for an example, a small exercise, uh, an impromptu thing. It is midnight. I wake up in sweats. um, there is a sound at the door. I go downstairs, open the door, but I find no one. I step out, for I am afraid and curious because it is late. Now, when I go outside, it is dark. Only the lights of the night street lamp is shining. Okay, and so on and so forth. There's a dog lying there. He seems dead, but I think he's sleeping probably. Whatever. Right.
So,
Now, when I
Yogesh,
say
so
this,
yeah,
if you were listening,
so,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
guess
yeah, whatever.
like I can relate to you completely. It's like you are saying it's the power of expression. Even in corporate world, usually, like we say, Archita stepped in and said, being an MBA, I need to present. So even when it's a corporate crowd, you are sitting in a boardroom. I guess just going up and saying won't help. You need to come up with a clear
Yeah,
agenda, a presentation with a bullet point, so that people can upfront relate to it. They can start thinking over it. They can run their own imagination.
right.
Right? And Yogesh, I must say, I
Hmm.
was thrilled and extremely. It's interesting to know that you started reading because you wanted to become an author. I mean, wow! It's first time I've heard this.
Okay, okay.
Usually,
There are different angles to that, but
no, I got it. I got it. Like Archita herself, she has a dream of becoming an author, but that dream follows because she's an avid reader. And to our audience, I would like to say, she didn't say, but she's a winner of Godrej competition just because her hobby is to become an author, and she had won this competition. Uh, so coming back to Archita, I must say, uh, when did you start reading and how did you manage so much time to complete 1300 books? And also, I must say, you need to throw some tips as to how one can increase his or her reading speed. I mean, your speed is phenomenal. Come on, yeah, just tell us.
So I started, so when I was a kid, my father used to read Many Blyton as bedtime stories. I think a lot of parents do read to you when you were a kid, you can't sleep. So I started reading Famous Five and the Five Fine Doubters. Those were my favorite mysteries as a kid by Many Blyton. And so at one point, my father got busy. He had work in office and he couldn't read to me. If you're reading a mystery, you can't just stop. You can't just be like, okay, I'm not going to read ahead and wait till the weekend for my father to get free and then he'll read it to me. So I started reading then with a lot of steps, asking my mother for help, all of that. How to increase the speed of your reading will come to the second part of it. So as I get time to read, I said I keep reading everywhere. If I'm commuting, like when I read Hunger Games, the entire trilogy in my first year of college, just when I was traveling on train. I used to go to St. Xavier's. It's in Hobi Talao. I live in Borivali. So it's a 1 hour commute just by the Western Railways, extremely crowded, claustrophobic carriages, where you're just pressed between so many women. And I need an escape. You will go insane in the heat and the crowd unless you have an escape. So I started reading the Hunger Games trilogy while I was in the train to escape, and I would go to I go to the District 12, which is a great place to go if you have read the book. But so I even now I do that. If I am at my distributor office and I have some time, I have just a couple of minutes free before the next phone call or before I will send an email. I'm waiting for somebody to get back to me. I'll just pick up a book and start reading on my phone, an ebook. If I have an hour for lunch, I'll read while I'm eating. I read while I'm brushing my teeth also. So I read all the time basically. If you want to increase your speed of reading, I suggest you pick up books which are easier to read initially. Like if you pick up books which are written in a way which is very easy to read, which is very quickly you can read. Like let's say Rick Riordan's books, the Percy Jackson series, the Kane Chronicles, very easy to read. The words just fly off your page. Like you can read them like I can read them in a day, kind of a thing. It's very simple to read, and they're like good 200, 300 page novels, but very quick reads because the way they're written is very fast and the words are very simple. So pick something up like that. That will actually increase the way you look at words, how fast you read. The reading speed will increase, and maybe then you can slowly go to more heavier novels, which takes time to digest. And there's actually a quote, which I'm sure Yogesh should know better than me, but like by Charles Lamb, which where he says that some books are meant to be swallowed, just meant to be tasted.
Yeah.
Some books are meant to be chewed and swallowed. So some books
Yeah.
take time. You really have to give that time to that book. Like I was reading Catch 22 a couple of days back, which is like,
Oh,
it's this
boy.
big, guys. It's huge.
Yeah,
It took
yeah.
me 3 months.
I
It took
have a
me three
copy.
months. This book took me 3 months to get through, but I usually read multiple books together because if I just read one book, which is a war novel and it's so heavy, it will depress you. So I was reading this and I was reading Harry Potter on the side. Harry Potter was a very fast read. I read it in like 3-4 days. This took me 3 months. I took multiple books at the same time. So that's one thing you can do. If you feel the book is getting too heavy, too dreary, pick something else up. That's okay. ये बाद में आएंगे इस पे वापस हम घूम के 2-3 दिन rest take. If it gets too depressing also.
We just got one comment in our chat box.
Yeah.
Catch 22 is my favorite. So I guess even I need to pick that up as soon as possible. And to all our listeners, there is no denial to the fact that it's a great conversation starter. Like even Archita had an experience. Even I had my own experience when I'd gone for my internship interview. So with a partner of the firm, the only conversation which he said that, tell me something beyond your CV. So I just said that, okay, I'm reading this book called as One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch. And the entire 25-30 minutes talk went just on that book. And if I'm not wrong, I got selected just because of that topic. So I would tell everybody that read a lot. It's not just novels you need to read, but even magazines or newspaper. Just have a habit of reading. And to all the listeners, if you are interested in finance, I would say this is the easiest book you can start reading. So One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch, you can pick that up. So let's move ahead. And this question is to both of you, Yogesh and Archita. Yogesh, maintaining the code of chivalry, we'll always let Archita go first for all our questions, okay? So, Archita, there is this thing, at what point to decide if the good is bad or no. So usually what habit I have is to be patient till first 50 or 60 pages, let the entire plot get developed and come into highlight. And at that juncture, decide, okay, book is worth reading or no. But you can see reading 100 page for an average person might take 2 or 3 days. Uh, in normal weekdays or routine days. So, Yogesh and Archita, at what point do you decide if this book is worth reading going ahead or no?
So for me, I think you gave 100 pages. I actually don't give that long. And there's something which, again, this I'm quoting Rick Riordan, he's a famous author, where he said that in the current age, when you have so much media, which I think Yogesh also spoke about, there's so much of Netflix, there's movies, there's video games, there is so much to consume that if the author, I feel, if the author can't capture my interest in the very first chapter, maybe if I'm being very generous, or the first 2 pages, usually. So before I buy a novel, I usually read the first chapter. You get these extracts online also. They give the excerpts online. You read the chapter, you realize, okay, usually like the first line, it's always said, as a writer, I'm sure even Yogesh should agree, the first line should be very impactful. Like one of my last reads was The Fountains of Silence. The first line was, they wait in line for blood. So immediately, like, what? They're waiting in line for blood? What is this? I want to know more about this book. I want to read this. And you are hooked. So for me, if the first line does not hook me, if the first chapter does not hook me, I probably not read that book. As I said, I quit books very easily. If I feel this book is not worth my time or not that interesting, I will not read it. Yogesh, your views.
Yeah, I have an entirely different approach when it comes to books. I do that actually with cinema mostly, movies and all these TV series and stuff. But I have a habit of completing what I started sort of thing because I don't want to let the book go. It just doesn't come naturally to me. And the other thing is, it depends what kind of a reader are you. If you're starting out, okay, if let's say you've read just 10, 15 books, right? When it comes to that, you can sort of give a particular book 15, 20 pages. If it's not your thing, then just drop it. But let's say you're an experienced reader, like Archita, and you come across a book. Now I love that you mentioned Catch 22, by the way. You must remember the major chapter. Oh my god.
Of course.
That book is hilarious. Anyway, when it comes to Catch 22, or let's say the book that I just showed you, To the Lighthouse by Wolf, or James Joyce, it is a known thing that these are very difficult readers. Not Catch 22, but Wolf and Joyce, these are very difficult readers. When it comes to Joyce, I had to give up twice after 20 pages. But there was that thing that I need to complete the book. So I came back to it again. So it depends, what kind of a reader are you? You have to first establish that. But once you're a good reader and okay, this is a big guy and I need to cover this up, you should give it a try. You should not give up on it, because when I ended reading Joyce, when I finished the book, it was so good. By the way, we can talk about reading as a pleasure when it comes to this. We are talking about why read, and there are the obvious answers that the vocabulary is improved. You sort of become
Yogesh,
better in a lot of ways. You get information, this and that. Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt here,
yeah.
but while you were talking, this interesting question came up. You just said that, okay,
Yeah,
this
sure.
guy is an established author. Now, let's just say a new author has
Right.
come. Now, you will agree to this. You are a new author, and Archita reads a lot of,
Yeah.
Indian authors and all. And let's accept the fact that there aren't many established Indian authors or renowned Indian authors as we have the American or British authors, say Jeffrey Archer,
Sure.
Sidney Sheldon, which have been famous since last generation as well. So Archita
Hmm.
and Yogesh both, we'll let go Archita first. But if that author is not an established author, then which book to pick up, whose book to pick up, apart from reviews and all, because even on Goodreads and all, you don't get many reviews for those books.
First of all, that's a wonderful question. Like, it's the eternal question, I think, for readers: which book to pick up next. But before I start, I have a small disagreement with you, which I don't think that Indian authors are not that popular nowadays. Like, a lot of Indian origin authors and Indian authors are currently something you see featured a lot on the New York Times most popular list. The New York Times bestsellers. You have Roshni Chokshi, you have Amitabh Ghosh, you have Jhumpa Lahiri, you have Arundhati Roy. You have so many great current contemporary Indian authors who are making a wonderful name internationally in the global scale as well. As somebody who writes really well and who has gives the voice to a person of color, maybe to speak. So ideally, originally, you would find that historically, there's not in literature like in history. The diversity is very rare. It's mostly a very white dominant narrative, but that doesn't mean that there is not good in literature which exists. They do. We just don't know about it, which is basically your point, saying how do we pick up an Indian book where we don't know if it's good or not, right? So you can always, the book blurb is something which I really like. I always go through the book blurb. If it seems interesting, I'll pick it up. So let's say Perimal Murugan, the One Part Woman, is a very famous book of his, which I really loved. So when I picked up the book because I really liked the book blurb. I was at the Delhi Book Fair. I saw the book. I liked the book blurb. I said, okay, let's pick this up. A lot of different books I picked up. Kavita Kane, wonderful contemporary author in India about Indian mythology, Amish Tripathi. All these were books which I picked up because I liked the blurb. Apart from that, you can always ask your friends. That's what friends are for. You ask them, hey, which is the last book you read? Did you like it? And obviously they have some recommendations of their own. You can attend lit fests. If you're in Mumbai, especially, they have a plethora of beautiful literature festivals happening. Usually you'll get Indian authors there who will come and speak about their books, about experience. If you like that person, if you like what he's speaking about, please pick up their book because you'll probably like the book as well, right? So I think aspiring authors and new Indian authors have a wonderful forum now in the form of, let it be most literature festivals or social media. You get to hear them. If you keep your ears and eyes open, you will find somewhere you hear about. And if you think the topic of the book is interesting, even if it is not popular, do pick it up. Because it's not always that all popular books are good. A lot of popular books are trash. Like, I'm sorry to say, but they are sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what.
I agree.
Yogesh, what do you have to say on this? Come on, we are waiting to hear from an India author.
Arey baap re. I can talk about this not on based on experience, but just as a point of view, because I haven't picked more of new literature. I only go for the established one because there is this. It's a Scorsese quote, by the way. He goes back to the classics. He would watch black and white films and this and that rather than watching the contemporary. Obviously, there has to be a mix, but as an inspiration, he would always go there. So I did the same thing as I started, and I think I'm still doing the same thing. So I don't know. I guess when it comes to picking books, I'll have to agree with Arshita that the first page has to be a good one. And as a warning sign, I would have to write a goddamn good first page, in future, if I need to be anyway. But anyway, there is this thing. The names you mentioned, it's very confusing to me because Jhumpa Lahiri, Vikram Seth, all these people, Amish Tripathi, this and that. These can't be considered new authors. These can't be considered less likely to be found in the bookstore kind of authors, because these are like the entire nation knows the name, the nation of readers. But the thing is, see, there is this opinion, all right. It's not a very popular one or not very well received, but one has to attach the soulless world of advertising to it. Okay, it is a dread for the writer to advertise and promote
I'm an
his book. So that
advertising graduate, just saying
I know
right
I
now.
know that's why it's not a popular opinion, and that's why it can be offensive. All right, but anyway, it's an entirely different existential conversation. We should have that thing. The next
But
time we
I
speak about existentialism.
sure, because it's all more in the context of Indian authors also being very popular on a global scale, because our part said that sometimes you don't see them. not as in a new author, but somebody who has really brought Indian literature to the global audience, currently in the
Yeah.
contemporary stage.
Anita Desai,
If I don't
Rohinton
know,
Mestri, all these people.
yeah.
The book
Aspiring
winner.
authors would maybe be Kavita Kane is somebody I like reading. I really like reading Anuja Chandramouli. These are all books I picked up because
Yeah.
I saw the book and I really liked the blurb. And I even the Adivasi Will Not Dance, Hanswandana Shekhar, I'm forgetting the exact name of the author. Uh, Wonderful book, Perumal Murugan. Perumal Murugan is also quite famous now, but was a controversy and all. But when I picked up Kavita Kane, I picked her because the book I picked up was called Karna's Wife. And I had just finished reading a very popular book by Chitramanji Devakundi, which is The Palace of Illusions, which is on
Yeah.
Draupadi.
Right.
That's a popular book. That's a popular book.
It is.
But then I read it, and then I saw this one somewhere in some book festival or like a book fair, and it said Karna's wife, and I liked Karna as a character in The Palace of Illusions, and I wanted to read more about his character. So though I never read this author, I never heard of her before, I never seen her before. I think it was a debut novel anyway. So I picked it up. I just okay, let's give this a try, and it was quite good. Now I read all the novels. So
Nice.
that'll probably be how I pick up a new aspiring author's book.
I need to pick up a lot of new aspiring books. I don't know. I have to pick up new Indian authors as well. I've been reading classics for a very long time, so I'm sort of not experienced at that zone. But I would like to ask you, why would you pick up? Is it just a readerly thing? Because it is. I know it is, but for you individually, is it a readerly thing that you go across wandering in a bookstore and you're just exploring shelves and you just pick up a book out of nowhere? Is there a particular method to that? Is there a reason to pick up one particular book, or is it just random and you read the blurb and accidentally you happen to like it?
How do you pick a Netflix serial to watch, a Netflix series? How do you choose? You go through it and you think, oh, this one sounds interesting. That's the same way you
Okay.
pick books, the way you pick a Netflix series. You see
Uh,
something, you think the topic is interesting, you think, I like it. See
right,
what's this about. That's
right.
that is something which I usually go about if I'm in a mood to really browse and pick up something new. Otherwise, I'll confess I am also some whatever bookish snob, where I usually pick up books which I have heard are really good, or it's from an
Hmm.
author I've actually loved a lot earlier. But I do pick up new books if I like the blurb and if I like the title a lot. It just seems something very interesting.
It is sort of an ongoing battle. Earlier you spoke of listicles, and you were right. You shouldn't be bound by these lists or top 100 books to read before you die. You know, if you follow that, you're never going to read happily and live happily, because it will just
Yeah,
kind of bog you
definitely.
down. So yeah, it's a
So
constant
for
battle, because if I'm picking a new book and there is, I don't know, let's say Gustave Flaubert, just right across it, then I'll be like, okay, I haven't read Flaubert yet, I must read it. And you sort of give up the new guy. So it is an ongoing battle, and we are the ones who usually suffer because about the debut book and all that stuff.
even one more point which just struck me and I'll just mention before I think we close this topic, been going on for some time, is book clubs. So one book club which come to mind is be, uh, bring your own book, BYOB. It's called Bring Your Own Book, and they have chapters
Yeah,
across India. They
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi chapter. So in that kind of a book club, what happens when you go, each reader brings a book and they talk about that book. So if you go to one of these book club meetings, like when I was in Jaipur for 3 months for an assignment. They have a Jaipur Book Lovers Club and they have a Broke Bibliophiles Club in Jaipur. People discuss the books that they have read. It's a wonderful way to find about new, lesser known authors you may not have heard of.
Hmm.
Maybe somebody's friend. Like I have read a book just because that person, the author was a friend of one of the book club members, and he spoke really highly about this guy's book in a book club. And I said, okay, this sounds interesting. Let's pick it up. So, okay, I think we're done with this topic and let's move on. Giving to part. The
Yeah,
stage is all
sure, sure.
yours.
Yeah. So in fact, Archita, my dad happens to be a big fan of Amitabh Ghosh, Sea of Poppies, and there's a specific question for Yogesh
Sure.
from one of our participants. So, as Yogesh Tak is an aspiring new writer, where does one get the motivation for writing the?
I just lost you, Parth. Could you repeat the question?
I'm sorry. There was this question by one of our participants,
I
but
think
unfortunately, I lost the chat
the
because
question basically it's in the comment chat. It's basically where do you get the inspiration to write about characters who are different from who you are, basically. It has different beliefs to what you believe.
Okay. Oh shit, that's a good question. Yeah, because because what you find usually is that yeah, it's a good question because what you find usually is with these new books that the main character, it's a first person narrative obviously, and the main character is sort of autobiographical, you know. So yeah, it is a good question, but you see what happened with me was there was something I wrote earlier before this book which does not exist now, by the way. This Black Shoe is my first novel. We can't talk about the one previous to this. So there was this thing for 3 years, 4 years. I was constantly writing dramatic stuff. Okay, and the characters that I was writing, they all pretty much seem the same to me. But when I read more and when I wrote more, I got to realize that okay, characters are a very important thing when it comes to a book. When it comes to a reading experience, writing experience, everything. So if all your characters sound the same, then how are you going to make it live? And how is it going to be any interesting at all? So that way you have to go looking for different quirks, different habits of different people. And there is a very bad habit of I don't know, spying or eavesdropping, I don't know, of writers, people who write, that always observing people. Okay, this guy's doing that, this guy's doing that. They sort of write a poem, uh, you know right there and then, which I have done a lot actually. Just looking at people, have been you know I've been said not to do it, so I've stopped. But when you come across all these people and when you think about writing something, you imagine the possibilities of employing so many different characteristics of so many different people into one thing, to make it sort of interesting, and not as a person who is expecting people to read it. As yourself, you want the book to be interesting in the first place rather than someone who is going to read it later, right? So there is that idea. Basically it just gets boring to write the same character again and again. you know so you can't be doing
If
that
I
all the
may
time.
weigh in over here,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, go on, Archita.
It is a natural ability,
sorry, I was
it's a
going to
innate thing for us to do that.
So maybe on the same line, I
so
would go on, Archita. Go on. Please go on.
uh, sorry, I think my net's a little unstable. But what I was going to say is that when I used to write for Tinkle, a lot of times I used to have to write for characters which are definitely not like me. So if Supandi is a bumbling servant, or Shikari Shapu is a hunter, a married hunter, not to speak, or a male hunter, and I'm not like any of those characters, of course. What helped me a lot, and if there are any writers who want to write, then is research, like a
Yeah,
hell lot of research. And
like
if you're writing, like even for, like, you wouldn't believe the amount of work which goes for like a 2-page comic story. It's just 2 pages in the comic, but the characters have to be true to the character, the personality. They each have to be unique personalities. So what I would do would be, I would write a character biography for myself, which never get published anywhere. I just write everything about the character. So this character loves to do this. This is what he likes doing. This is what he hates. He hates maybe broccoli, and he loves Ranbir Kapoor and Amish Tripathi's books and Amit Trivedi's songs. Just things which have
Maybe her net is,
yeah.
or it's my net. No, it's her
No,
net.
no, no, it's
Okay, so is she
about
back?
these character
Yeah.
about these characteristics. It's a very important thing because uh, as I said, of the quirks and different habits of other people, right? When you employ that in a character, that character sort of stands out. It becomes alive. If you remember Pride and Prejudice, the aunt, I think, has a
Oh, yeah.
certain way of speaking, you know, and whenever she speaks, you definitely connect with her. Okay, she is like that, and obviously she's going to say that. They just become sort of alive, and that's how you interact with a fictional character, and the entire reading experience becomes the reading experience. So yeah, the little quirks that she mentioned, those are very important bits.
Yeah, like in Pride and
Thanks.
Prejudice, there are five sisters. They were going to
Right.
mix.
Yeah.
Sorry, part.
No, in fact, I was, looping you in that we lost you midway because of internet connection. So please continue.
Yes, I'm so sorry. No, I was saying that I want to write these biographies, even though they were never published and never part of the story. Like if the story is about two alien boys coming to Earth and helping to build the pyramids, which was a story I wrote, which has no bearing on what the guys like to do in their home planet. But I wrote it so that I can differentiate between these two different characters I have in my story. And that's something which really helps. A lot of research. You go, if you're writing about a period in time, like when you were not born, or say in the future, you have to research on what happened at that particular time period. So right now, 18th century, you need to know how a person 18th century would think, would dress, would behave. And something which really annoys me as a reader in some books is that if the book time period of the book and the character speaking do not match, it really annoys me. If you're speaking in a 21st century lingo, but the book is based in the 20th century, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
So research always helps.
So, like you said about research, and since both of you have had a stint as a writer, and okay, we are, coming close to our time, but last question to both of you. What's the
It's
amount
10.
of research and how much time do you put in research, researching a character? Like you said, you have to do research. With what mindset and what amount of time do you put in? How hard is it? I'm sure it's going to be damn hard.
Yogesh, you want to go first since you're the published author? I mean, you should take this first.
It's nothing like that. You have written a lot. You can go on.
For me, I think there's this wonderful quote which I really like, which is that writing or creativity is 99% hard work and 1% inspiration. That 1% inspiration may strike you, might have a wonderful story idea. You might have, like, let's say, I want to write about like, there's something called Vanasena, which is Indira Gandhi. When she was a kid, she had this group of children, and they used to they used to do small acts and help the freedom movement in India when she was just like 12, 13 years old. So let's say I think I want to write a story about that particular group of kids and being very brave and helping our country get freedom. But for me to write that, I have to read a lot about Indira Gandhi. I have to know what her pet name was. I have to know what they call her. I have to know what kind of people she interacted with. Where did she live? What kind of neighborhood was she in? What kind of jobs would these kind of children do if they are which English British officer was stationed in India at that point of time? All of these are small details, but which you have to do research. You have to find out. The story is in my mind. I know I write about these brave group of young men and women, but I have to do a lot of research about the time period, about if a think also do research about their costumes, like what are the kind of clothes would they be wearing at that age? What do kids wear? They didn't wear jeans; they used to wear saris. So if you're wearing a sari, a lot of adventures become very difficult because now she can't jump over the gate. She has to somehow manage her pallu and everything as well. So you have to find a different way for this character to enter the. Let's say she's going on a spying mission. That's a different way in which she enters. So you have to know all these tiny details about their lives. And yeah, research is a major part. So if it took me 3 weeks to write the story, it took me one day to write, one day to think of the idea. Everything else was just a lot of research, man.
It's sort of like that example, if you want to cut a tree, you spend 23 hours just sharpening the axe, and then yeah. About research, I've had a crazy experience. I don't know where to begin, because I started out writing a book that was surrounded in a Western classical world. All right. The book is
Yogesh, can you
yeah.
just hold your mic
Yeah, sorry,
close,
sorry,
please?
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the book is about it surrounds in a world of Western classical music, and I wasn't okay. I had heard the famous ones, Beethoven's Ninth, and I don't know Chopin and all these people, Clary Loon. But if I want to write a book that involves a violinist and a musical conductor, then you need to know about these things. What Archita said about the little details of the characters, it connects to our previous question when we are talking about characters. Okay, these details are important for the character to become a proper person, right? And yeah, while doing these bits, I had to attend. I love to attend, but sort of part of the research, I had to attend a lot of Western classical concerts. And for 6 7 months, I did just that. I used to look up on the net, book my show NCPA. We have NCPA here, so I used to go there all the time. My parents are worried. What are you doing? Like, you're not even listening to let's say normal music. What are these sounds, and why is this? The opera, right? Why is this person shouting like that? So I had to completely just let go of myself and dive into that world to to be able to write. So when you're talking about research, yeah, it is an experience. I'm working on something right now, and the idea itself has been I've been playing around with the idea itself for a year now. So that kind of research goes into any sort of work, any sort of creative work. And yeah, without it, it's nothing. It'll all be shallow. You're just writing because some words in the English language, right?
A
I
fun
say to
anecdote to add here, just so once I had to write a story about a terrorist cell, and they wanted to
okay,
know
so
how
you
do they
just
make
shot some
bombs.
people, all right?
Yeah, like I know how do they make bombs. Like if they have to find the bomb, what goes in the bomb? So my
Yeah.
Google search history was all like,
Oh
how do you
yeah,
make bombs?
yeah,
How do you
yeah.
kill people? I'm like, if somebody's watching this,
Oh, they
I
are
was
they are watching. Everybody's watching us.
probably on like I don't know, I think Raw or FBI was like watching me for like a year. Or like, why is this girl just googling how to kill people?
Yeah, these are all the Google searches might seem aberrant, might seem very weird, but for people like us, it's an everyday thing, and I can't even share it with people. It's just too broad, sort of eclectic. So yeah.
Well, it seems that writing or maybe developing characters is no cakewalk.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So, to all our listeners, Yogesh has written this book on, as I mentioned, contemporary music called Black Shoe. So,
Yep.
hello, am I there?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just put your name in chat box, right? The book name of the book, so that
Sure.
everybody can refer to it. Yeah. And first of all, Archita and Yogesh, thank you very much for taking out time and coming for this talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
But
Yeah, it
but
was
but
great.
but before we quit, I have few rapid fire.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh, we lost. I think
Hey,
Yeah.
Yogesh and Archita, do I have you?
yeah, we were both here.
Yeah.
So
You talk
before
about
we
books, we
end
are
this
not going
session,
anywhere.
It's been an hour. We
so
were talking about
obviously,
conversation starter. It's been an hour and it's just flowing so smoothly. Still. So
yeah, I know, and we
that's
just
what it
want to
is.
go on and on.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But before
It's a portal of
this
pleasure. It's a portal of pleasure. And if you have opened that, if you have visited it, it's a good thing. It's another portal open for you to enjoy, indulge, whatever.
So before we end this session, I have just few quick rapid fire questions for you guys. So maybe always Achita can answer them first, and then Yogesh you can
Yeah.
follow. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Is it
first,
coffee with Karan? Do we get a voucher? Or like
yeah,
a
Arey,
towel or
yeah.
something?
obviously coffee is missing. I'm sorry. So Uh,
So we have
Obviously, the
Gustav Flaubert and Coffee with Karan in the same sentence, in the same hour. Right.
no,
That's
Interesting.
what's great about reading. You have every.
let's just let's just take this question first. With which author would you like to have a cup of coffee?
Dead or alive, or both.
Both.
Any maybe if we can bring his soul. So
I
Achita,
would
your choice. It's
I would love to talk to Enid Blyton and J.K. Rowling because they are two authors I really like, and I think the way they have fleshed out for Enid Blyton, the way she's written so many books and each character is unique. We talked about character development earlier, so I definitely that. And J.K. Rowling's entire magic world, like a world, man, like that is. I'd love to discuss with her how she did that.
uh, wow, J.K. Rowling is favorite of many, and of course, I'm a big fan of hers too. And above her, beyond her books and all, I am a big fan of her Harvard Business School speech. Yogesh, who's your
Uh,
author you would
Al-
like to
Al-
have a copy?
Albert Camus, definitely. And I'm going to ask him over a cup of coffee, should I have a cup of coffee or kill myself? It's his famous quote.
Definitely
It
tell
would
you.
be perfect. It would be perfect.
There's a question. Someone is asking a question.
Someone
Sure.
asked a question about character development, I think.
Hmm?
Yes, yes.
What's it?
So I think someone will ask something. Can you give us a few tips on how to do character development?
I think we discussed that a bit previously, but so character development. So first rule when I write a book is that you write for yourself. If you are a reader who's also a writer, and I think Yogesh established you have to be a reader to be a writer. You should write a book that you would love reading. Just imagine that if I pick this book up at the bookshelf, at the library or at the book stall, and I do not know anything about this book, and I read it for the first time, would I enjoy reading this? Read it. Try to read it from a stranger's perspective. When I read this book, when I read about this character, do I feel relatable? Do I like this character? And here's a thumb rule: people do not like perfect characters. Nobody likes if you are perfect. So don't write somebody who is completely perfect. You have to have some flaws. There has to be something because as humans we are flawed. So your character has to be flawed, and also your character has to have a journey. When you start the book and when you end the book, or when you start the story and end the story, your character should have changed through the events of the story. No, it doesn't have to be a very big change. It can be a very small change. It can be just like something he learned, or maybe something within him that he found within himself, some trait that he didn't know he had before. I'm not sure if I'm being very clear, but your character has to be somebody all authors do is that they tend to base their characters on people they know. So your best friend can be the main hero of the book. The teacher you hated the most in school can be the evil villain. So it's you pick people from real life. People in real life are different. People in real life are always very varied. So you can always pick those up and you can put them in your story. You can mix two people in your story and make a completely new character. Yeah, Yogesh.
Yeah, I agree with the point A to point B kind of thing, because that's what a plot does to characters. You know, you go on a journey, and when you've come back of, or when you've reached the end, you have sort of changed in some ways, or completely changed maybe. But yeah, it is important that change must happen. Also, when you're talking about a character development, you have to stick to some points religiously, you know, throughout. Or let's say for example, Hitler wouldn't you wouldn't find empathy in Hitler when he sees a Jew getting beaten up, you know, because that's not a character trait. You're kind of betraying everything here, you know. That inhumanity in him should be I don't know, should be uniform throughout the text. that sort of thing. So you have to be very careful with the character traits that you don't allow yourself to make them behave the way they wouldn't in their real life, you know. And this is a very important thing when your character is a first person. Already, it's when it's a first person narrative, and the narrator is the character, the main character, protagonist. And if you're writing a new book, okay, if it's your first book, there is this one crazy mistake that I've seen a million times and committed myself, that we tend to, you know, make the character more and more like us. So if I say I like Joyce, or I like Catch 22, you would make your character like Joyce or Catch 22. But you know what happens if it turns out he's not even a reader, you know. So you have to be very careful. That detachment is very important as an author and as a narrator. These are two different things. That of the author sort of.
Just to add on here, as a first person, one more warning would be to make sure that you do not if your character is writing in the first person, should not about things in another scene in which you are not present. As a first person narrative, if you are saying I and you're in one room, in the second room a murder happened, you cannot know who the murderer is unless you find out through the process. You cannot be omniscient or omnipresent if you're the first person character, in the first person narrative.
Yeah.
So maybe one last question. How many books have you read in this quarantine? Hey, no, let's just take this question. This question has come up in chat box. Also, which character traits are preferable for the story to flow better?
Honestly, it depends on your audience and the genre
You know,
you're writing for.
Yes, sorry.
No, please, Yogesh, you go on forward. I've been speaking too much. Your chance.
No, it's all right. Actually, I'm usually accused of speaking a lot and, you know, wandering. Kama would probably say since we're talking. Okay, I was just reading some. Yeah, so there is not a definite list of character traits that can be, you know, used for a particular story. You know, it's not a table that we have to refer to. You know, it's just that you just have to focus that if you are making up a character, if you're writing a character, it needs to be alive enough. It needs to feel like, okay, this is the sort of thing this person would do or won't, you know. And you have to make it stick throughout the book. Now character traits, of course, you know, when you bring in the genre thing, if it's a, I don't know, romantic something, or it's a campus romance novel, you would want the guy, you would want to add guitar. I don't know, it's just a relative thing. Okay, you would want to have music in a campus romance novels, or some tears, some kind of a breakup or cheating or something like that. Let's say if it's a thriller, you want a murder, all right. You know, you want suspense, you want secrets. Every chapter should end with a, you know, what's next, you know. So yeah, these are the things, relative things that help a story flow. But of course, you know, you can't properly define it. It depends.
So I'm going to bring out the advertising person in me and then address this question. A book is pretty much like an advertising pitch. You have to see who your
Oh
target
yes, oh
audience is.
yes,
You have to
yes,
see
it is. Oh
your
shit.
target audience is the first thing, and secondly, what's the topic, man? What are you selling? If, as Yogesh said, that it's a campus romance, a college romance, and you have two college going characters, do not make them sound like a 50-year-old man. Don't make them to be perfect. Don't make them that they're somebody so experienced and he knows everything. That's a big no. If it's a campus romance, your two characters, the two lovers have to be college kids, and they have to do what college children do, right? They have to be a little rebellious with their parents. They have to be a little sometimes very confused, because I think in college we're all confused. I was very confused in college. Like a little, though not sure how life is going to take shape. If you're writing about a 12-year-old kid and you're somebody who already has his life figured out, there's something wrong with that character. That's not normal. not how a 12-year-old would think. If you're writing from a 9-year-old's perspective and you use big words and you use like effusive and I don't know what are big words, man, like huge words, you use vocarious or like you use language which this kid won't know, then that character is not a good character. Your character has to be true to themselves, to their particular genre, and I'm also including genre as their personality, their age, where they are. So if this character is
Did we lose her again?
Yep.
Oops. So I guess what
yeah,
she was
she's
trying to
here.
say, is she back? Okay. Sorry, Archita, we lost you midway. You were saying be true to the character. You may want to continue from there.
yeah, I was basically saying if your character is, let's say, a girl in the Mughal period, he or she will not know a lot about what's happening in America because communications was not that developed back then. If she's a princess and she has some kind of some news coming in, great, but she won't know what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So the time period the story is set in is important. If you're writing in a time before Galileo, people will not know that the earth is round or the sun goes around, or the earth goes around the sun. People will believe the sun goes around the earth, right? So those are character traits which you have to keep in mind. You have to, again, that all comes back again to what we discussed earlier. Research, you have to know your character. And the second person you need to know is your reader. If you're writing for, like, let's say, middle school children, don't write philosophy. They won't understand it. If you're writing for, like, businessmen, don't go too much. Don't divert into huge stories they don't have time to read. You have to know who you're writing for. So that's why Chetan Bhagat's books are so popular. Like there's an example that I'm not saying the stories are great, but he knows his audience, right? He's a marketing genius. He knows that he has to write a book which will appeal to the Indian class. He has to write in a language which is simple enough for everyone to understand, even if they are not like somebody has done a lot of English, has studied the English medium school. It has to be with characters which they can relate to, which they see around themselves. He knows his audience down to pat. Like Camus and William Shakespeare is great, but there's a very few people in this world who know how to read them at this point. So if you're writing in this world, you have to write in a way that people in this world can read. So that's and even Shakespeare did that. Shakespeare used to make his plays in
he
a way
wrote for
that
the
would
masses.
sell because he had a theater. He had a theater. He had to fill that theater every day. And even Charles Dickens. So if you read, and this is a fun fact, if you read Dickens novels, you'll find they're huge. They're like he just goes on about random things for no reason. The reason being that he was paid per word, and each chapter was published as a story in a magazine every week. So he was paid for a number of chapters he could write. So he had to drag the story out. And people in that day and age did not have TV, so that was okay. So he knew his audience, that's why he's popular. Every popular author knows his audience. That is something which you have to know who you're writing for, and to be very clear that I'm writing for this particular segment. Don't say I'm writing for people between 15 to 40. That does not make sense. It's too big an audience for you to write about. It'd be great, your book may be popular between people between 15 to 40 years old, but you have to pick a certain sect of people and pitch to them. Again, the advertising student in me is going to say, pitch to your target audience.
Okay,
Yeah.
there is just this one little thing. He talks about writing for different age groups, different people, different, I don't know, who have different backgrounds or whatever. One thing we missed was writing for yourself. All right. Now I know it's an entirely different opinion. The books need to sell, and you have to appeal to the masses. Even Shakespeare wrote for the masses. This and that, all that stuff is there. Granted, Chetan Bhagat is a marketing genius. Granted, but there is this one, whoever is listening to this, whoever wants to know about, writing for whom, there is also this one side that there is an option of writing for yourself. All right. Now, obviously, if you're writing for yourself and you're like dedicated towards it, you're going to be good. But also the other thing is that probably you're going to die poor and miserable because nobody's going to read it. But there
Like
is
John Keats.
Yeah. She died at 24, I guess, by pneumonia, and a lot of other people just committed suicide. So yeah, there is that angle, but you have to ask yourself, why are you writing? This is sort of going from reading to writing, but you have to ask yourself why you're writing. Do you find it enjoyable, or do you want to make money out of it? If you're interested, there is a Bukowski poem, you know uh, uh, do not do it, don't do it. Yeah, there's a poem called it doesn't have a title, but it's called Don't Do It. Generally, you can find it on YouTube. So there is that option of writing for yourself, and not looking to be famous or popular or make money out of it. And in my experience, it's a more fulfilling thing. Obviously, again, there is the fact that you're not going to earn anything out of it. And but if you're looking at writing as something you would want to, I don't know, enrich your soul, then you can't be bothered about other people, uh, the masses, or the target audience or stuff like that. There is a very popular Kurt Vonnegut letter read by Ian McKellen. If you've watched Lord of the Rings, he's Gandalf. Okay, and Kurt Vonnegut, he's a genius. I just completed Slaughterhouse 5. So he says that, do this one exercise tonight. Take a page, write 4 lines or 8 lines, and make it into a rhyme so that it's difficult for you. Okay. Now spend everything you have, all of your qualities, all of your abilities on those 8 lines, and just write it up. And then when you're done, and when you feel this sense of achievement, accomplishment, take the paper without showing it to anybody, tear it up so that it didn't ever exist. Okay, now that's the sort of stuff I'm talking about. I know it's crazy difficult, all right, but if you're looking at writing as something fulfilling, as something you would, without which you won't be able to, I don't know, function, then that's the way to go. Which is with me. If I don't write for a week,
No, I've
I'll
done
be
that.
depressed.
I've
Yeah.
written stuff
So
and torn the paper up.
yeah, so that's the part where you write for yourself. A sort of
You mean
enriching
it is
experience.
yeah,
Well, so I
sometimes
guess,
stories
okay,
stuck in which you just have to write.
Yeah. I mean, there are
yeah,
all
yeah,
these
go on, Archana, go
like
on, go on.
permutations and
No, that was I was just saying that sometimes you have to get the words out because they are in you and you really want to put them down somewhere, even if it's not going to be very popular. That is something which I definitely do. I journal a lot, which also is a great way to get in the habit of writing actually. Just if somebody's looking for tips on how to get into writing regularly, journal every day. It's wonderful. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. So I guess with this, obviously from reading, we went on to bit of writing towards the end, but this just shows how engaging our audience was and how interested they were in knowing your stint as both as readers and writers. And thank you very much for coming on this platform. To all our audience, if you have any more question, you can post it on our email ID, which is udanideas@gmail.com, which I've just posted in the chat box. You can refer to it. Maybe I can link you to Archita and Yogesh so that we can resolve your questions. But Yogesh, thank you very much, and all the
thank
best for
you,
your book,
thank you,
Black
thank
Shoe.
you.
Archita, thank you very much. And to all the people looking for which book to read next, just follow her Instagram, Wanderlust. And I hope to see your book soon in the market too.
As soon as I stop procrastinating, actually start writing. I'm somebody who is a wonderful reader but a very shy writer. I am very scared of putting my book out there. It's like a baby. It's my baby. I don't want to like get it to anybody else.
Well,
So
I'm
once
sure
I
you have
get
assured,
over that, yeah, hopefully.
I'm sure you have assured readers out here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. Good night. Take care. Hope
Yep,
to see you all
thank you,
soon. Yeah.
thank
Bye
you.
bye. Bye bye. Bye
Sure,
bye.
bye.
Yeah.
Nice talking
Thank
to
you
you,
very
Archita.
much.
Bye.
Yeah.
You too, Yogesh. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Neeti, can we end this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.